Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today, we're diving into the increasingly relevant topic of outrage fatigue, a phenomenon explored in a recent Scientific American podcast. It's a fascinating discussion, and I think you'll find it both insightful and, dare I say, a little bit cathartic.
Outrage fatigue? Sounds like something we all experience in this hyper-connected world. I'm already intrigued. What's the core argument of this podcast?
Essentially, the podcast argues that while outrage can be a useful tool for identifying and reacting to problems, constant exposure to it leads to a state of emotional exhaustion. Outrage fatigue. It's not just about feeling bad. It's about becoming numb and apathetic, which is incredibly dangerous.
I see. So it's not about suppressing outrage entirely, but managing its impact? That's a nuanced point. What are some of the key factors contributing to this fatigue?
Absolutely. The podcast highlights several key factors. One is the current political polarization. We're living in a particularly divisive time, and social media, unfortunately, amplifies this division. The algorithms prioritize inflammatory content, creating a feedback loop of outrage.
That makes perfect sense. It's like the internet's version of a never-ending shouting match. And what about the research mentioned? What did it reveal about the role of outrage in misinformation?
A study by William Brady found that outrage actually boosts the spread of misinformation. It's more engaging, emotionally charged, and therefore more likely to be shared and amplified online. This leads to a withdrawal from public discourse, which is a serious problem.
So the very thing designed to alert us to problems actually contributes to their obfuscation. That's a pretty alarming finding. What solutions does the podcast offer?
The podcast suggests several strategies. One is mindful media consumption, limiting exposure to constant streams of outrage-inducing news. It's not about ignoring problems, but about managing the intensity of exposure. Another key suggestion is to engage in local politics and community initiatives. This allows for more direct and impactful action.
That's a really smart suggestion. Focusing on local issues seems far more manageable and less overwhelming than trying to tackle global problems all at once. What about recovering from outrage burnout? Is there advice on that?
The podcast touches on that. Pulling back from media consumption, unfollowing accounts that consistently trigger outrage, and engaging in self-care activities like spending time in nature are all recommended. It's about resetting your emotional state and regaining a sense of control.
It sounds like a holistic approach is needed. Managing information intake, engaging in constructive action, and prioritizing self-care. It's not a quick fix, but a sustainable strategy. I think this is a really important discussion, especially given the current climate.
Absolutely. And that's why we wanted to share this podcast with you. It's a call to action, but also a reminder that we need to prioritize our mental and emotional well-being in the face of constant negativity. Remember to check out the full podcast and article on scientificamerican.com for more in-depth information.
Thanks for bringing this to our attention. A very insightful and timely discussion.
You're welcome. Thanks for listening to Tech Bytes and News. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.